got my 14-year-old brother sent to the big house for life. My brother is 7 years older than me, and from the time that I was born, he hated not being an only child. He told me when I was about 4 years old that he was going to try to find a way to permanently get rid of me. My mom worked 2 jobs and barely paid attention when I told her things like this. One day, me and my brother were all alone, and he kept walking by my room while I was fake sleeping. He then got a hammer. Part 2 about how I got my 14-year-old brother put in the slammer for life. So as I'm fake sleeping, I see him walk by my room with a hammer. I already knew what he was going to do. I decided to let him get one good swing because I was so tired of trying to get him in trouble and nobody believing me because I couldn't prove it. That one swing hospitalized me. They also found my mother unfit for not protecting me or listening to me every single time I told her that I was in danger. After being hospitalized for a week, my grandparents flew in and then flew me back to go live with them. My mom had visitation rights and my brother was in prison.
I was babysitting my friend's children and I was putting her 3-year-old son to bed, right? And as I was trying to walk out the door, he pointed behind me and he said, "Ghost." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Ghost, ghost." And I said, "No, babe, there's no ghosts in here. Do you want me to check for ghosts?" And I checked under the bed. I said, "Oh, no ghosts here." And then I opened and closed the door to show him that there were no ghosts behind the door. I said, "Look, no ghosts. No ghosts." And then I tried to walk away and he kept pointing behind me and saying, "Ghosts, ghosts." And so luckily I had a friend who was helping me babysit and she had children of her own. So I thought maybe she knows how to handle this kind of situation. And I walked across the hall to the little boy's sister's bedroom because my friend was putting his sister to bed. And I walked up to my friend and I didn't want to scare his little sister. So I whispered to my friend, "Oliver says that there's a ghost in his room." And my friend said, "What?" And I said, I know. I told him there's no ghosts. And I did the thing they do in the movies where you check under the bed and stuff. But he is very certain that there is a ghost in there. And my friend said, "Okay." So we both go, we stand in his doorway. We were like, "What's up, Ollie?" And he just kept pointing behind us and saying, "Ghost, ghost." And he's getting more and more upset, right? He's yelling ghost and he's more and more frantic. And my friend and I are pretty spooked at this point. We thought, okay, well, we're not going to do is freak out. But we are quite certain that there is a ghost on the premises. What do we do? Does Allie have any smudge sticks in the house somewhere or fancy candles? And then all of a sudden from the other room, his sister yelled out, "Closed." And we both went, "What?" And his sister said, "He's saying closed. He wants to sleep with the door closed." And we were like, yeah, obviously. We knew that's what he was saying. We weren't scared of a ghost.
I secretly hate my husband, but I can't leave him. Disclaimers in on my Storytime listed me on Instagram. My husband and I have only been married for 2 months. We dated on and off for almost 7 years. So when he finally proposed, I was actually really happy. The problem is that we never lived together before we got married. He never wanted to move in with me when we were dating. He also had this thing where he wouldn't want me to come to his apartment randomly. He would always schedule times where I could hang out with him at his apartment. This all seems suspicious, but I really wanted to marry him, so I just decided to overlook those things. But now that we're married, I see why he didn't want me to come over and why he had all these strange rules. It turns out that he's incredibly messy, lazy, and is super picky about the food he eats. So now that I'm his wife, I'm constantly having to clean up after him. Every single time he goes to the toilet, he always leaves skid marks, or for some reason, he always has explosive poop and it goes everywhere on the bowl. So every single time I go to the bathroom after he does, I'm always having to clean it up. And it makes me so angry that I have to clean up after him that I have begun to hate him. Also, he's super picky about his food. We can never go to restaurants because he never wants anything on the menu. And if we ever do go to a restaurant, we have to go wherever he wants. I love all types of cuisine, especially Indian, Mediterranean, Japanese, but he thinks it's gross. He comes from a very American family. He grew up eating chicken nuggets and grilled cheeses. To him, anything with some spice is way too much. That means I can't cook what I want because he always complains about the smell. Thankfully, he's got an office that's 30 minutes away, so when he leaves, that's when I cook. But I have to make sure to air out the apartment before he gets home. I'm always doing his laundry and cleaning up after him. Every single time he shaves, he leaves hair everywhere. I actually hate this man now. I told him that I don't want to live with him anymore, but he freaked out. He's begging for me to stay, but I'm so unhappy. What should I do?
Am I wrong for walking out of the baby shower my in-laws threw for me? The situation is kind of a mess. I, 27 female, and expecting my first baby with my husband. This is the first grandchild in the family, and they said that if the baby is a boy, then we'll give him my father-in-law's name. He's dead due to cancer, and I had no problem with that. This happened before we found out the gender of the baby. My husband and his family had me do things like attend prayers and do other rituals before the reveal at the doctor's. I didn't like that, but went with it to keep the peace. They thought if they do some hubba lubba, they can decide the baby's gender. Doctor appointment came and it turned out to be a girl. My husband cried in the car, then turned his phone off to hide from his family, then finally told them. If my husband cried tears of sadness that we were having a girl, not a boy, I would be livid. Continue. His mom and the others made their frustration and disappointment clear, which bothered me because my daughter deserved to be celebrated. They ghosted me for days, then started coming over and visiting constantly, referring to my daughter as my son, claiming the results were false and basically pretending it's a boy. I had several fights with them, and after they refused to stop, my husband sided with them despite seeing how wrong and unreasonable what they were doing was. We didn't speak for a while. Sister-in-law called to apologize, then informed me she arranged for a baby shower for me. I was so excited and happy, but when I arrived, I saw blue balloons, blue cake, and father-in-law's name/decorations around. I was so confused I had to sit down. My sister-in-law explained that they were still hoping that my gender results are false and it's a boy. I looked at my husband and he agreed with her. I lost my temper and yelled at them all, calling them delusional and telling them to stop treating my daughter like she's unwanted and act like she doesn't exist by throwing a party for their imaginary grandson. Mother-in-law broke down crying. I took my bag and walked out immediately. They started yelling and my husband followed me outside and started arguing about how I insulted his family and his dad's memory by acting like that. He said they needed time to process the fact that it's a girl, not a boy, as they expected and insisted I play along and they'll soon get over it. I told him to wake up and see the insanity to his family's behavior. I said absolutely not and demanded he take me home. He said no, so I called an Uber and left. He was fuming. He called 15 times, then texted that he won't be coming home until I get over it and apologize for ruining everything they've done for me and accusing them of being mentally unstable. I haven't responded yet, but he's constantly pressuring me to get right with his family before we even talk about anything else. Oh my god!
While on vacation in a city 8 hours away from home with my girlfriend, we get into a small argument, and this resulted in me leaving her stranded in a downtown area in the middle of the night. I walked back to the hotel 20 minutes nearby to cool off, thinking my girlfriend would eventually make her way back soon after. However, after 2 hours, my girlfriend was escorted back by police. Turned out, her phone was on low battery, leading her to not be able to look up directions on the way back or call for an Uber. She ended up getting lost for an hour and had to later borrow a stranger's phone to call the cops for help. I felt pretty horrible leaving her there. However, given that my girlfriend is already a full functioning adult, I didn't consider the possibility of her phone being dead. She does have a bad habit of forgetting to charge her phone. I threw her a Metro card and stormed away. She ended up overreacting to the whole situation, claiming that I abused her, packing her belongings and calling her sister on the phone to tell her about what I did. Her sister ended up blowing up my phone, calling me cruel and abusive. Mind you, I only left thinking that she'd be able to get home easily. Even though it was a couple hours past midnight, the city was still crowded with people, probably not dangerous like she exaggerated. When my girlfriend was still crying to her sister, she lied and said that she's now feared for her life, possibly implying that I threatened her. In the heat of the moment, I snatched the phone out of her hands to talk to her sister myself. She suddenly screamed to the top of her lungs, another overreaction, took her belongings and ran out of the hotel. I chased her down, but she told me that she had already booked a flight home in the early morning and never wanted to see me again. She kept saying that I hit her when all I did was try to explain myself. Her evidence being the very tiny nail mark I left on her face when she was trying to resist, snatching her phone back and didn't let me talk to her sister. 2 hours later, a police officer knocked on my hotel room as I realized that my girlfriend had gone to the police station and reported me for domestic violence. I gave my statement and they advised me to stop contacting her for the night. I didn't want this incident to ruin my hard-earned vacation, so I decided to stay for the rest of the trip like I had initially planned. After I got back, I tried calling her sister and her mom and they refused to hear my explanation. Her mom even told me that they're still being interviewed by the police to follow up on the domestic violence report. I heard her sister telling me over the phone that I will pay my price. What could that be? My parents are undocumented. Now I'm paranoid that her family, knowing this information, would call the anonymous tip line on my parents.